which I did was, even though I did not spend much time understanding the frameworks, like I did case study for 15-20 days, but I took feedback for 20 because that is where they are following the rules, you understand what they are doing. Then second phase was about breaking the rules, like try to understand.
Has almost like 2 years into PM, and he is from Triple IT Hyderabad. He is, I would say, punter of case studies. So let's look into his way of thinking into case studies. We have a lot of things to understand from him. So let's get started.
Good evening, everyone. And yeah, before starting the session, just wanted to give a heads up that I wanted to be more of an interactive session. And I want to decode the way I think and wanted your perspective on it because the PMing can be different for different people as well. So I want to start with a bit of intro about me. Like I got into PM straight out of college without any tech experience. Like I knew coding, I was doing hackathons and everything, but not a proper tech experience I had. And only thing which helped me get into this role was case studies. So before even starting with case studies, I wanted to know your perspective on why do you guys think case studies might help you get a PM job? Anyone? What is something which companies look forward to in case studies?
The way things are decoded by the candidate, the way how the candidate structure everything could be one of the possibilities.
Yeah, structured thinking as well. Anyone else?
Might be aware, the candidate is aware of industry trends, like competitive landscape what he have.
Okay.
Okay, I can say like it should be the candidate should be aware of like domain knowledge, like what the candidate aware about the domain knowledge or not. So regarding the case study, it may if the candidate say like I worked on so and so industry, it may be e-commerce or telecommunication. So maybe this case study will help.
Got it. So domain knowledge. My screen is visible, right?
Yes.
Also, to gauge somebody's strategic thinking, problem-solving capabilities, and solution.
Yeah. Anything else anyone has in mind? I think most of the things get covered when we say problem solving, to be honest. So, any more responses before we get started with it? Cool. So I will tell you my perspective of thinking when I was applying for jobs as well. I researched a bit more about it, on what companies are exactly looking for when they are hiring for a PM. So from that thing, I got to know that if you are working as a PM, mostly companies are looking forward to two core skills. First is problem solving, and second is communication. So when I say communication, it can be written as well as verbal. The whole point of communication is that we need to convince stakeholder that anything we are proposing is good to solve. So how well I can communicate a thing to others. And when I say problem solving, and if I want to I would say break problem solving into two things. First is problem space and second is solution space. Like how much clear you are about the problem you are solving, why we are solving the problem and who we are solving the problem for. That should be clear first. And once we are clear about what exactly we are solving, how we are proposing the solution and how we are tracking the metrics so that they can get the overall idea about how exactly we are visualizing the solution. So that are the two core skills. First is problem solving, where you propose a solution based on the clarity which you have. And second is communication. And when it comes to case studies, I think if you present your case study well, it can help you cover all the three major aspects which people are looking forward to. Most of the people don't have I won't say don't have, but lack problem solving ability. When I say problem solving ability, most of the people just tend to dive into solution first without even thinking about the problem, or they just use the random framework. So agenda of this session is I will just walk you through few of my case studies, and based on that I wanted to show you guys about how I think about the problem and how I come up with a solution, and in the end how I present the solution effectively. Cool. And also, if anyone has any doubts in between, I would appreciate if you can ask on the spot doubt, because I am pretty sure everyone would be having different thought process as well. So you can feel free to cut me off whenever you think you have any doubts. So today I'm going to talk about the Dunzo case study which I did. So yeah. By the way, if you do lots of research, you might get this kind of a thing where your file looks suspicious and all those things. But yeah. So coming to the problem statement which I was targeting, like the problem statement which I was trying to solve was Dunzo is looking to reduce carbon footprints for the company. And we as a PM wanted to devise some features which would help Dunzo achieve this target. So this was the problem statement which was given to us. So how I decoded the problem statement was that in most of the cases I knew that the actual problem statement which anyone is giving is not what they want to solve for. So even when I have been given with any problem statement, I make it as a point key how I can deep dive into the problem to understand everything about the problem. And that is what I started in this case study as well. I just highlighted the keywords which I could see here. For example, carbon footprints, and we need to create features to help Dunzo reduce the carbon footprints. So these were the keywords, and when I looked at these keywords, I did not have any idea about what each of this means. Like Dunzo also, I did not have much of clarity when I was starting off with case study, and carbon footprint I had zero idea. So my first instinct was I should get clear clarity of what exactly problem we are solving and all the details associated with the problem. So obviously first thing was, since I don't know anything about the carbon footprints part, understand what it is. So this is the usual practice which I follow. First I note down all the questions which I have, and then I try to look for some documents or YouTube videos which could help me solve this problem. So what I did was I looked for a few links which would give me some information about I would say questions which I am looking answers for, and based on these links I note down the important points on what I can get from those links. So that helps me with the structured thinking part. Like I know these are the questions which I have and this is how I can solve it. So if you look at it, I first went through the two commonly I would say two popular links which were there in the internet, and I noted down the important points for my reference on this is what carbon footprint means, and everything about carbon footprints which I felt was important I noted down here. So this was the first part of research where I just understood the keywords which were there in the problem statement. Anything which would be helpful for the case study. So that was the first question which I had. Then obviously the second question which I had after going through this thing was, why Dunzo want to get into carbon footprint part? Because it is completely different domain. And why Dunzo is going to look into this kind of a thing like carbon footprint view. That is when I did a bit of competition analysis, where basically I went through all the competitors and tried to understand, are this competition doing anything in this space because of which Dunzo is having any disadvantage. So that was my first thought. So I got to know about this Zomato's sustainability journey, and yes, I got to know that Dunzo has created Zomato has created quite a big impact when it came to carbon footprint reduction and everything. So this was the first thing which I realized. If you take any competitor like Zomato, I analyzed. Zip was another thing which Zepto was doing, where they were partnering with Zip to reduce carbon footprints. So I got to know that all the competitors of Dunzo are coming to this segment, but Dunzo as of now had not taken any significant step in this part, and they were trying to expand. So this was one article which said that there were plans that Dunzo were trying to go into it, but they were not able to achieve it. So this was my first point. Ki, okay, competitions are going into this space, but Dunzo is not there. Then again, the second question was ki, why competitions are going there? What is the reason why they are going there? So that is when I came across this article, like why e-commerce is moving towards sustainability. And that is where I got to know one insight that the Gen Z audience are buying more where they are seeing sustainable options, even if it is a cost of adding few more money. So this was one insight which I got from this article, like why e-commerce cannot sustain without a sustainability. And one insight was Gen Zs will not buy from you even if you give them anything at a cheaper rate. So if you look at the future, you cannot do anything about it. You need to move towards sustainability. And compared to competition, Dunzo is falling short there. So this is how I reached to I would say one insight, which was that instead of changing the problem statement from just Dunzo trying to reduce carbon footprint, I changed the problem statement based on these insights, where I changed the problem statement to, I think I have not mentioned here, I think I have mentioned in the PPT when I was making the PPT, but yeah, this was the thing. Like instead of taking the normal problem statement as it is, I changed the problem statement in this way. Like how can Dunzo reduce carbon footprint so that they can improve the positioning using some user-centric campaigns. So this was my problem-solving phase, where first I tried to understand what exactly carbon footprint is because I did not have complete context. And then I went into detail about why competitions are going into it and why Dunzo should go into it. And then I reduced to this problem statement. So this was my first part of research. So I just want to stop here and
I'm sorry. May I interrupt, Atharv?
Yeah, sure.
So if I can, what I got so far from your breakdown is, so first you have the problem statement, a generic problem statement given to you by the client or a company or whatever, and then you look for those keywords which make sense, which does not make sense, etc. So the keywords that do not make sense can be out of your field of expertise, and that you'll do a bit of more research, secondary research there, and then you come down to have a updated problem statement.
Yeah, in a way it is right, but I just don't look for keywords in all of my case studies. The general practice which I follow is that as soon as I see the problem statements, there are few questions which comes to my mind. Like, I don't know what exactly carbon footprint is. Why Dunzo wants to go there? What are the competitions doing? So I note down all these questions, which I think are important, but I don't have answer. And then I try to search for that answers, and based on that, I try to understand what exactly the problem statement could be.
So it's like you're trying to deeply understand the question. By questioning the question itself. Okay.
Yeah, like why company might have given this problem statement. Anything which I think I don't have answer to. First, understand that in detail, because unless you understand complete context, the solution which you are proposing might not connect with exactly the vision or context which company is giving on the problem. Also in my job, I'm seeing this thing a lot. Like whenever my head of product is giving any problem statement to me, sometimes the essence of problem statement is lost when it is in the conversation kind of a thing. So you need to ask question to your boss as well, like what is the objective, why we are doing this, why not this solution is working. So in the same way, I try to replicate that in case study. Understand all the questions and then try to jot down those questions and then try to find answers for that. Cool. So this is the part one of the research, where I'm just getting the context, okay, Dunzo, why we are solving and what is the exact problem I need to solve for. But then another part of research is like if I'm proposing anything for Dunzo, I need to understand how exactly Dunzo works in and out. if I don't know how exactly the company is working, then I cannot propose the right solution. So that is the second phase of research. Like first phase of research is identifying and having clarity on what exactly you are solving. Then second part of research, which I usually do, is understand everything about the company so that you have clarity on who the personas could be, whom you should target and everything. So after all these things, what I did was I tried to understand complete Dunzo's journey in and out. So when I say in and out, I will just give you example of what I did. So this was one article which basically dived into detail about how drivers are mapped. Whenever any order comes, how drivers are mapped and what is the commission to them, how the tasks are assigned to them, how priority is decided and everything. So basically once you place the order, everything end to end, how it is done from backend side, this article dived detailed into this part, which gave me understanding about, okay, once I placed the order, I know exactly what is going in the backend and what are the limitations which might be there and which I need to take into consideration. So this was one kind of research. Then there was one research which was did from user perspective as well. Like first one was from company perspective, this was from user perspective. Like if I'm using the product, how users are looking at this product and where users are facing problems in it. So this was the second kind of research which I did. And third kind of research was like, okay, I know Dunzo in and out, but also I need to look at warehouse part, like how complete warehouse system in Dunzo works. Because from my above research, which dived into carbon footprint emissions, I got to know that majority of carbon footprint emissions would happen either in the warehouse part or in the driver side of things. So I need to understand warehouse as well as drivers. So that is when I dive deep to understand how complete warehouse system works as well. So here they had explained in detail about why they are not using navigation system of Google here, why Google's navigation system might not have worked in this warehouse, and how they changed the current algorithm of Google so that they can accommodate to their use case. Then again, if anyone is from CAC background, then they might be knowing that finding shortest path is an NP-hard problem, which is basically non-polynomial type. Then they also explained the algorithm on how they converted this non-polynomial time algorithm to P problem, which is solvable problem. What changes they did in this, along with the server-side integration as well, like where the data is getting stored, which APIs are being called, which database they are using. So again, idea was same, like if I have complete information on how exactly company works, then only I can propose the exact solution. So this was the second kind of research which I did to understand in and out about Dunzo from user perspective and from backend perspective, like order processing perspective and navigation warehouse perspective. And based on this research, then I came up with few segments. Like these are some of the rough segments which we should target based on the above research. And based on that, I came up with who I should target. So this is the second part of research. Like first I know, first part of research just to iterate was about having clarity on problem statement. Second part of research was to know everything about the company, which I wanted to know so that I can devise better solution for them. So this is the second part of research. So I just want to stop here and see if anyone has any doubts here. Otherwise, I will move to the solution part. So if you look at this thing, which I just mentioned, what companies are looking forward to in problem space, first, how well are we understanding the problem and narrowing it down. We just gave a vague problem statement for our assignment. Most of the people take that as a final problem statement without understanding what exactly we should focus on. No one even cared about narrowing down the given problem statement. So this is the first mistake which most of the people do. Okay, how well you are understanding the problem, and second is how well you are understanding company and related context-based information. When I say context-based information, it can be in this case user-centric information as well as warehouse information, other things as well, where Dunzo might not have a complete control, but some part of control is there. So these two things were there in problem space. And then once I have clarity on everything, I defined who I should make solution for, what problem I am solving, and what could be the impact. I had clarity on all these things once the problem space was completed. And once problem space was completed, then I went on to the solution phase. So in solutions phase, what I did was I just mapped down the complete journey of happy delivery and tried to figure out what are the opportunities in the complete journey where we can reduce CO2 emissions. So we started from discovery phase up to delivery, post-delivery phase, and we tried to understand where all are the opportunities where we can reduce carbon emissions, which could be visible to users as well. Because if you looked at the narrowed down problem statement, it was about creating perception in the mind of users that we are creating some impact on carbon emissions. So we were looking for opportunities which would reduce CO2 emissions, but at the same time impact should be visible to users. Otherwise they won't care and they won't come to the platform. So that is what I tried to figure out, at what all stages there could be opportunity. And once I had idea about these are the opportunities, then I proposed solutions for each of the things, and then we planned a GTM. So this was the complete clarity in the document phase which we had for solution. And once we had clarity on solution as well as problem, then we moved on to making the PPT out of it. Like, all the research which we did might not be useful for everyone. When I say everyone, the target audience which we were presenting to was Dunzo as a company. So Dunzo company might not want every information, so we tried to pick what information would be useful for us, and we presented only that information in a structured way so that it would be easier for them to read. So if you can go through this PPT later, I will just share the things. So basically we just picked the important problems on how we revised the problem statement, what were the constraints which we had in mind, who were the personas. We just picked the important points of the research because we know that no one would read entire document if you give 20 pages document. So idea was how you can present effectively in 6 to 7 pages so that everyone is aware of the impact and everything could be understood in an efficient way. So this was the first case study which I wanted to showcase to you guys. Before opening the space for questions, I just wanted to let you know that in this case study, we spent 70% time on the problem. Because when I looked at the problem statement, I was clear that I'm not exactly sure of what exactly the problem is. But once we were clear on the problem statement, we knew that solutions were straightforward. Because we just need to look for opportunities and we need to define solution for that. So solution was hardly 10% of time, and rest 20% was about presenting the solution in effective way so that stakeholders are aligned. So if I'm going to interview and pitching this case study, I would pitch on this lines only. So this was the breakup which I wanted to show to you guys as well before coming to the questions.
Quick question, Atharv. Are you open for questions now?
Yeah.
Is it okay? I can talk. Yeah, the flow makes much sense. But you said you encountered in one of the meetings in your company, director of product, let's assume he comes up to you and say, hey, we have such and such a problem, etc. So I'm coming from the live problem solving perspective. So case study, I don't know how many hours it may take. You just have to sit down, go through materials and etc. Okay, if I could rephrase this question again. So does the senior management expect us to give solutions as soon as possible for their questions, for their problem statement?
From my experience, I would say it depends a lot on company to company culture, and also within the company, how important problem you are solving for. Based on that, the priorities are defined. Like if I know it is a small change, like small change in onboarding flow, I might not need so much of research. It can be like you can create a hypothesis, jump to a solution, and then see based on data. So it depends on type of problem statement, I guess.
Got it. Thank you.
any more questions on it. But I think this is one good point which I wanted to showcase in my next case study as well. Like, since this case study was something where I was not familiar about. So here I spent 70% time on my problem space and only 10% was on solution space. The second problem statement which I wanted to showcase was the problem statement where we spent only 10% time on problem space but 60% time on solution space. So everything depends on context and everything boils down to one question, I think, which I asked. That is, do I have enough confidence to present it to stakeholders and get their approval? If my answer is yes, then I don't go into research. So my only thing is, how can I convince my upper management that this is an important problem to solve and this is the solution? If I think I need more research to convince because it is a big problem, I'll go deep into research. If I think that this problem is not big enough and for them they can give approval with bit less research but more execution part, then I dive more into execution as well. So it is understanding about what is the context of the problem, how your company looks at that problem, and accordingly suggesting the solution. So that is the approach I follow in company as well as in the case studies as well. So in the next case study, I will show you the same thing. So yeah, any question till this thing on Dunzo case study, complete case study? Because I've taken the feedback from senior PMs, VPs, and also APMs on this case study, I can say that there are lots of scope of improvement in this case study as well. So if anyone thinks that this is not the approach which we should follow, I think that is also cool because there is no right way here. You just need to define a story. So if anyone thinks they could have approached it another way as well, I would be open to that as well. Any questions?
Yeah, Atharv, I have one question. So, if we like present case or case study, so what matter most, like content or quality?
What do you mean by content here?
Like for example, like if for a particular problem we have two solve solutions. So what like if we have to like show only one, like that way.
So like you are trying to say how when you say content, it is like, do we focus more on the presentation part or the research part? Is this the question?
Yes, correct.
Ideally, answer should be content quality is important, but based on my experience, I guess it differs. Like if I take real example, leaving aside the case study, if I need to convince, like if I have a solution in mind, I need to convince engineers, I need to convince designers, and I need to convince upper management like head of product. So head of product ka lens would be more from the business perspective. So there I need to show more numbers, what could be the impact, what could be the revenue thing and everything. If I'm presenting the same to designers, so I should focus more on the users part. Like this is the problem which users are facing, and if we solve using this solution, this would be the impact on user experience. If I'm proposing the same solution to engineers, it would be like current system is doing this. You might not change much into this system. You just need to change this much, but impact would be this much. So it depends on whom you are presenting. Based on that, you need to present as well. My only worry is if you just focus on quality, but don't focus on who you are presenting it to, then they might not be aligned on it. So you also need to have clarity on whom you are presenting it to and accordingly present as well. That also has an impact. Otherwise, in most of the cases, if you just present from user perspective to head of product, they would say it is useless because obviously their metric would be business. In the same way, if you pitch a technical perspective to designers, it won't be of use. So I think it is equally important to present what they want, basically.
Thank you.
And when it comes to case study, also it depends. Like if I want to answer in terms of case study, there is my one case study which I pitched to Dream 11 because I wanted job in Dream 11. So I knew my target audience was a Dream 11 as a company and not users who are seeing the case study. So in that case, I did not include all the basic research because I know that Dream 11 would be knowing this. I just focused on the insights which would be new for Dream 11 as a company. and that is when they would shortlist me. So again, in case study also, it depends on who you are presenting it to. If your target audience is to showcase it to LinkedIn audience, or is it company, or is it head of product or designer in that company, your presentation would also change, and that would have a great impact along with the content. If content is bad, obviously nothing would work. But even if content is good, but you are presenting wrong things to the different audience, then also high chances is that it won't be that effective. But yeah, presentation does not matter. You can present it in Google Docs as well. If I just go through few of my case studies, if I don't have time, I just present it in Google Docs. So I will just walk you through one of that case study where content and how you present is important, but how you present does not mean presentation only. So if you look at my Razorpay's case study, here also I presented it to business stakeholders, but here I presented it as a document because I did not have time to make a presentation out of it. But the way I presented was very much different from what I would have presented it to designer. But when I say presentation, it means how you structure the document and not PPT as a whole. So just to clarify that.
Okay, then thank you.
Cool. Any more questions on this or anything which you might have done differently in this? Because for me, if I want to rate this case study, it would be 5 on 10. Because there are many drawbacks in this case study.
Quick question about the audience of the case study. Let's assume that I want to hit the CEOs or the C-suite managers. My rule of thumb is to keep it less than 5 to 10 slides, not more than that. So, considering the fact that the C-suite employees or the managers, senior managers are busy, they value their time. How would you, shrink things into the slides? What would you pick?
Yeah, I will tell you that thing. First thing, like how to decide, I will just tell you my approach on doing these things, like how to decide what to present first. And then I will come to the second question is how to shrink the slides.
Yeah.
First thing is like I am a lot into psychology. Like I like to understand how people understand things, how they perceive things and all those things. So whenever I have free time, I watch podcast of Andrew Huberman, who basically tells like how to read human's mind and how you can understand what they want. So that gives me a clarity, like if I can spend 2 hours or 5 hours of time with anyone, at least I get a rough idea on how and what they expect from me. And that gives me a good judgment on how I should present it to them. And that, according to that, I design PPTs for higher management. Like even the PPT which I showed you before, which I presented to higher management, there was instinct in me like my manager would like a presentation which is more MBA kind of a presentation where more information and numbers should be there. So I get a rough idea on what exactly anyone wants. So I would highly recommend to go through those podcasts where they tell like what are the traits and how you can decode the patterns by talking to someone. What questions you can ask. That helps me a lot. And coming to the shrinking part, I think it is linked to that only. Like once you understand what is the intention or what is the objective which you want to achieve and what they want to hear, you need to have a balance between both. So I try to see that, okay, just giving you example, this person is more into business metric and he just is caring about numbers, not caring about users. And he only has 2 minutes to hear what I'm saying. So in that case, I would present only that numbers kind of a thing.
How you contact with the stakeholders of different companies? Through LinkedIn or like
of different companies, like from case study.
like when yes for case study.
I don't focus on what they bring to table. I just focus on what they can achieve if safety study. What I do is I just understand who the stakeholders are. Like understand VP of product, who the VP of product is, and what is the general culture of that company. Is it a solution-oriented company, research-oriented company, how they are thinking about going about implementing the solution and roadmap, everything. In most of the companies, we can get this information either through CEO talk or through articles present out there. So what I do is I just try to understand the mindset of company. Just if I want to give example, data focused company. They don't care much about users. They are like, users don't understand anything when it comes to gambling. We should rely more on data. But if you look at Netflix is more of a user focused company than data centric company. They focus more on users, even if it is like negotiating a bit on data kind of a thing. So once you analyze companies in detail, you would get these insights. And based on these insights, I structure my email. I have not researched extensively about Dunzo. I cannot say what exactly they want. But if my assumption is that Dunzo is someone who is user centric and they want to position themselves so that they are market leaders, and where I decode how I completely write an email by researching all these things. You can have a look at that video later, where I completely deep dive into how I analyze the company, how I write an email, and how I send an email to them. I have mentioned everything in details there. You can have a look at my YouTube channel. There is a complete video on this.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. I think since time is not there, what I would like to do is, so currently I think we have understood this thing. Like in this case study, I spent 70% time on problem, 10% time on solution, 20% on communication, because I was underconfident about my problem space. I felt I did not have enough data points to convince. So I will just walk you through few of my other case studies, and I will just let you know like how this number changes based on context and problems which I'm solving.
Sorry, I mean, you said you will rate a 5 out of 10, right? Your previous case study. So, can you share any case study where you will rate a 10 out of 10?
Yeah, I would say go through the Razorpay case study which I showed you. I don't think any case study is 10 out of 10 anytime, because there is a scope for improvement. But I would rate that 8 or out of 10. You can go to my portfolio and you can look at the Razorpay thing, because that is a company Razorpay was satisfied with that case study. He was like, you should pitch this to our company. So I would say that case study was good just because director of Razorpay approved that problem statement and he agreed on the solution which I proposed. So I was able to convince him, so I'm assuming it is 8 on 10. So in this portfolio, you can have a look at that case study, Razorpay's one, the document which I just showed it to you right now. I don't want to cover that in detail because that was again research heavy case study. I just wanted to cover a different scenario where how this number could differ, basically 70, 10, 20. So that is why I was just looking at this Rapido case study. Problem statement was simple, like people are switching between Ola, Uber and Rapido. Whenever anyone is booking an app, people open 3 apps and simultaneously, and wherever the price is less, they book that. Or if time is the constraint and wherever time is less, they book that. So how can we reduce the switch? So if you look at this problem statement, everyone is using Ola, Uber, Rapido every day. So we know in and out about complete user experience which we have, and in and out about, to some extent, company as well, in regards to the problem statement which we are solving right now. So here I felt that in-depth research might not be needed. Instead of that, I should spend more time ideating the solution and defining the impact, because I felt I had enough context on the problem. I have faced problem myself. I also even have seen 10 to 15 people who are facing this problem. So in this case, I felt that, okay, I know the problem. I should not focus more on problem part. It is defined. It is good enough problem statement to go ahead and understand where I should focus more time on. So that is why if you look at this part for the Rapido case study, problem space was just 10 to 15% thing for Rapido case study. And we spent more time on presentation. And that thing, presentation was almost 40% thing. Because the problem is so common that people would say it is an obvious problem. So we need to make them understand in simple way possible that what we did. Because again here target audience was LinkedIn. We were not doing it for Rapido as a company. but target audience was LinkedIn, and we know that if I put this case study on LinkedIn, no one would read big things. So here the main problem statement was, how can we make them understand in less words what we are doing? For example, in cab ride, what segment we need to target. So here we just mentioned like we had complete idea on all these things. So this was based on our hypothesis that if it is a long distance ride, this Rapido is not active there, so we should not focus there. Then in short distance as well, there is one cost sensitive market and time sensitive market. And cost effective market has been dominated by Rapido itself. We got number based on that. But in time effective, where time is the priority and also bit of comfort is not a concern, that is where the switching happens. So this was the insight which we had initially. We just wanted to spend more time on how we can present the problem statement. So this is where we spent majority of time on, which is presentation. So again, the point I'm trying to make is, sometimes the problem statement would be well defined, sometimes solution would be well defined. Only thing which might be required is communication. And this would happen in company as well. Like, if I want to have one example, there could be cases where CEO or higher management is also aware that this is a problem. We are getting many customer requests for that. But someone is not able to convince them that this is a problem which needs to be solved now. Solution is also obvious. So in that case, I would put more time on presentation kind of a thing. So that you need to decide based on the context of problem statement. It is not always that 70% time should go in problem space, 10% on solution and 20 on this. It depends on context, type of problem you are solving, type of company you are in, and also to some extent time you have in hand. So based on this, you need to take a call. And if you need to take a call, only I ask most of the time one question only: how can I convince stakeholder easily? Where should I put most of the effort so that I can convince people effectively? And then I try to decide, okay, these are the rough percentage based on the thing which I have. And based on that, I take a call. So just to give you context on this, I just wanted to show Rapido case study as well, but since time is not there, I just did this thing. Maybe I can take one small example similar to this. Apna, I don't know if anyone knows what Apna is. So Apna is a unicorn company which provides jobs to tier 2 and 3 tier company. So here also problem statement was simple: how can you improve Apna? And obvious thing was like, being from tier 1 city, I cannot even understand the pain which these people go through when they are looking for a job. Basically, Apna provides jobs to security guards or grey collar workers, I would say, grey and blue collar workers, maybe plumber or electrician. They provide jobs to those people. So I know that the hiring process would be completely different from what it used to be for us, like as IT professionals. So I wanted to spend more time on problem space there because complete audience is different. I don't know their mindset as well. So there actually I took 5 days of time, applied for watchman, got a job as a watchman, and I did the watchman duty for 1 day. And that is when I got to understand the pain point which they go through. Because again, time was a factor. I could not spend 10-15 days on all the research part. So I just told that like I will just apply for a random job, do that job, and understand like what are the problems which these guys are facing, talk with them and understand it. So I just did this kind of a research. So trying to make is the way you look at the research phase or solution phase or communication phase would differ, and also the way you approach that would differ. It might not be the case like only every time you would find answers to secondary research only. Sometimes you need to go there, talk to users. Sometimes you need to be user only. So you need to decide what is the most effective solution based on the time in hand and get answers to the question which you have. Same goes with communication as well. Every time PPT might not be the right way. Sometimes document could be the right way to present. Sometimes it could be verbal communication as well. So you need to understand what is the right way, and that depends on context. And that would come once you do more case studies. And that is the reason I spent my time doing 40 plus case studies. You can go through all the case studies here. I did case study of almost all the big companies to understand their mindset and to get some domain knowledge as well. So this has been my approach. But if there is one key takeaway which I want you guys to take, is this thing. Only 3 things are required whenever you are applying for a PM job. At least I think so. Good understanding on how you understand the problem and have clarity on what you want to solve for. Second is how you find solution to that problem and define the impact of it. And third is how you communicate it. Now inside problem state, again, multiple things would come into place. Like basically here you would be having some set of questions and you need to understand or get answers for that questions. So what is the right way to find the questions? It depends on multiple factors that you can decide. Is it secondary research? Is it interviews? Is it going into shoes of users or just talking to upper management? It could depend based on various factors. Same thing with solution. Do I need to only propose one solution or multiple solution? Can stakeholder be satisfied with only one solution or not? And same thing goes with communication. So there is no hard and fast rule. Everything boils down to one question: is you need to convince stakeholders that this is a good problem to solve and communicate it well. And that is how I look at case study kind of a thing. And all the case studies I've approached in this way only. So hope this would give you a better understanding on how I decode case study, because I don't believe in frameworks. I don't think frameworks can help a lot. And at the same time, I don't think a same approach would apply for all the problem statements which you are solving. You need to be flexible. You cannot say that I want to do complete research thing before jumping to solution. Sometimes there would be cases where you need to first jump to the solution and then iterate if it is not impactful or other factors are there. So you cannot be constrained on this thing like 80% on problem, 20% on solution. You need to identify and answer that thing to yourself. So yeah, this is the main thing which I wanted to convey. I just want to have 15 minutes for doubts. Like if anyone have any queries, I can answer them.
And please share your YouTube channel link.
Yeah. In YouTube channel, one video which I would highly recommend you guys to watch. I would recommend to watch any other video, but here I have deep dived in detail about how I approach the research-centric case studies. Like right from a research phase to ideating solutions to everything, I have decoded my complete approach here, and then how I presented it based on the stakeholders. So I have deep dived completely into it. So that would give you a better clarity on it. So I would recommend this video only if you are looking for case studies, and also a video with Akshita. I think someone mentioned about it.
Yes,
there is one case video on product case study 101.
Yeah, do you have any kind of a template to start with? I mean, as we progress through the research, we will identify how much to focus where. But to start with, do you have a kind of any template in which we can start with this research case study?
2 things which I did was, I will just share it with you guys. When I started off with it for problem solving, I would highly recommend to go through this article. Issue trees, not this article. There is one detailed article there on how people break down the problem and find solutions effectively. So in that there is one reference attached to it. So it is a 50-page document written by a consultant of McKinsey. So he has completely deep dived into basically why we need issue tree to solve problem effectively, how you can solve problem effectively with this framework, what are the common mistakes which people do, and he has even taken some practical use case to solve the things. So I would highly recommend you to go through this article. This would give you a better understanding on problem solving, and this article would be good enough. And second thing would be this. Most of the IIMs have their case books where basically IIM people have solved multiple case studies. So if you can look into it, almost 45 case studies are there. So even if you go through all these case studies, you would get a fair idea about how these people solve the case study. And that is where I got an initial idea about how to approach case study. Because obviously they would be using the frameworks and everything. But what I used to do was I used to question everything what they have done. like why they have used this framework, what is the reason behind using this framework. In this also I used to go into detail of it, like why we need to market this thing if we are solving the problem using R&D. So I used to question all the small details and try to understand the logic behind the framework. So I would recommend going through all these case studies to get idea about how MBA people think, and then come up with your own framework. Okay, this people are using framework, but logic behind the framework is this, and that is when you can decode why they are using this framework, and then come to the first principle approach, which I just talked about. So that would be my suggestion if you want to get started with frameworks.
Sorry, this casebook link, is it in your Notion as well?
It is not there, but you can find it over internet as well. Even if you search IIM casebooks, you can get it, or I can share the link in chat as well. I think I can share this complete thing. So it contains all the link to articles, books, case studies, and other materials which I have referred to when I was starting off with my journey of product management. So maybe you can go through this. But apart from that, I would recommend there are many other articles as well, but I have not referred them.
And how about the issue tree?
Issue tree, yeah, this is the website, untools.co. You can go through this website. This would give you a brief understanding. Basically, in this website, they decode the logic behind the frameworks. Like they first tell you this is the framework which you are using to solve the problem, and then they decode the framework, why you are using this framework, what is the logic behind it. So that would help you improve your first principle thinking. So that also I would highly recommend. Any other questions or thing which you want to ask, you can ask it now. I think someone asked a question about should we have only one solution or multiple solutions. I guess that doubt must have been solved, right? Any other things? Because I have seen people question my approach as well. Like you should use frameworks and all these things. So I think it depends on perception as well. For me personally, I don't believe in frameworks, but few people have that perception where frameworks are helpful to them. So I won't say that it's wrong as well.
Say like to people who have not done any case study so far, right? So to give a structure, possibly frameworks is a good point to start. But once they gain experience, then they can go by their instinct, like how to solve it, right? To start with, at least frameworks may help, but yeah, as you said, right, flexibility is the key. We have to be flexible enough.
Frameworks. Yeah, I think I agree with that. Frameworks are important when you are starting off with, only if you understand the logic behind the framework, why we are using that. If you don't question why behind the framework, then it would be difficult. This is a good article for that. So this is the thing which I followed. Like first you follow the rules, then you understand like why we are following that thing, and then you break the rules. Once you understand the basics behind it, then you break the rules and then you make your own rules. So this is the thing which I follow for anything which I want to learn. So first, understand what good people are doing. That is where I follow the IIM casebooks, because that is where they are following the rules. You understand what they are doing. Then second phase was about breaking the rules. Like try to understand why they are doing this, what is the logic behind it, and everything. And then you try to make your own rules. Basically, try to make your own frameworks or tailor your approach based on the problem statement. So this is the thing which I follow not only for case studies but anything which I am learning. So that would help.
Yeah, recently I had a deep dive session on YouTube with DSK. There also I have seen like 7 hours of content where he has explained everything in detail. But can I restructure it in the same fashion? I cannot. I have to abstract it and take it to framework, and then I understand like, okay, this is why he thought so. Maybe that would help Atharv. And after that, when we are good at things, as you showed, like Shuhari, right? So once we know what is in the box, then we can go out of the box. Otherwise, we think out of the box thinking when we are still in the box. Right? I mean,
but it depends like how much time you are willing to spend on frameworks. I would recommend, at least from my experience, spend not more than 15-20 days following the frameworks. In 15-20 days is good enough to understand the logic behind the frameworks, and then try to think from first principle. One thing which I did was, even though I did not spend much time understanding the frameworks, one thing which I actively did was, every case study which I did, I took active feedback from VP of product senior PMs and PMs to get their thought process. And based on that, I learned a lot more than frameworks. And then for next case study, I used to improve on that. And that is how I built my thought process. So I would recommend that thing. Like, even though the case study is not perfect, first understand the framework in 5 to 10 days, apply anything which you think is good, take feedback and improve based on feedback, because that would give you more practical insights. And the shorter the feedback loop is, the more you will improve. Like, I just spent 5 days on theory and then started with case studies. Then I did case study for 15-20 days, but I took feedback for 20 to 25 days. Almost equal time I spent for feedback to understand where I'm going wrong. And that is when I got to know that even though Dunzo case study looks good on the surface, it is 5 on 10. Because senior PMs say I got different perspective. So that feedback loop, if you maintain, then the time you spend on framework will decrease as well.
Yeah. So as we are hitting the hard time stop, right? I just wanted to thank you, Atharv. I wanted to ask anybody else has any question or otherwise. Anybody wants to share their experience over here with Atharv? Like, how do you feel this whole session?
It was really good, Atharv. Your answers were very precise and clear. Thank you.
Yeah, and we also like your thought process, and it was very clear, especially the Shuhari method of learning things and unlearning things is pretty impressive. Thank you.
I have been using that for everything, almost everything. Even when I'm learning singing, I am following the same thing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Atharv. I really love this session, and we'll have this session shared with everybody, and also we'll see if it can go to YouTube. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, hope it was helpful. Yeah, bye.
Superb. Thank you. Yeah, awesome.